Welcome back to another episode of the Rich Woman Arising podcast. I'm your host, Eloise Tompkins, and I'm a money mindset coach and psychologist, and I love helping women to heal their relationship with money. And today I want to share with you the holiday money wound, which is something that I see a lot of women struggle with. Whether you run your own business, or whether you don't, whether you're working a 9 to 5, we can have a lot of our money wounds pop up over the holiday season. And I know it's not quite December. I know that it quite hasn't hit yet. However, I don't know about you, but I know for me, like I was at the shops the other day and I could feel the collective energy around me. Things are starting to amp up and that collective energy starts to get more frantic. And as we head into December and towards Christmas, that energy just intensifies. And I don't like going to the shops in those moments because I really feel that energy. And I prefer to avoid that energy as a naturally anxious person as it is. I prefer to step away from that frantic energy. But I want to help you understand your relationship with money, particularly over the holidays, and to give you some tips and tools to be able to navigate some of those things that may be coming up for you. Maybe that are coming up for you now, maybe they'll start coming up for you a little bit later, but I want you to be aware of them and also have some tools underneath your belt. Because we often talk about boundary, self-care, yada, yada, yada. And we talk about money in some ways, but we don't really talk about the why or how that belief or block got there. So that's a little bit about what we'll be covering today. And when we think about the holiday season, whether you celebrate Christmas or not, that collective energy exists regardless of how strongly you celebrate Christmas. There's a lot that we can unpack, right? Like you have created your business and you might be making really good money, more money than your family ever thought was possible. And I see this quite a lot. Women who have created this really successful business, they're creating a really good living for themselves. And they're now out earning their parents or other members of their family, which can then be really difficult for other people in the family to sit with. And to be honest, that's a them thing. That's your other family members' issues. And it's indicative of their money blocks. And it has an impact on you too, though, right? Because you're in this position of, oh, do I or don't I talk about my business and my success? Do I or don't I buy that expensive gift that I know that I can easily afford and will make my other family member feel uncomfortable, or they'll say a judgmental comment or have some kind of response that then leaves me questioning and doubting myself? There can be all of those things at play. And then that can make it really difficult to then be in the room with those people. So I totally get it. Then there's like the social comparison, I guess, like other people, particularly on social media, comparing what other business owners are doing, what other women are doing, and comparing ourselves to them. For example, well, they're working all the way up through to Christmas. Maybe I should have done the same thing. Or they look like they're offering this really good promotion or offer for Christmas, and I haven't done anything like that. What's wrong with me? Like, should I have done something like that? Maybe I should pull something out of the woodwork at the last minute. We've got that happening. And then we've got our childhood money stuff that comes up, all of those beliefs and blocks from the past. Like your family might have, or your parents might have said things like, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or all these beliefs around Christmas and that you have to spend a certain amount, or that you need to buy everyone a present, or whatever it is, whatever your holiday money stories are, they're generally amplified at Christmas because you often are around your family members. And we know that, like, when we go back to our family members, we can often regress back to, I guess, childlike states. I don't know whether you experience that. I know I do. Go back to my dad, go visit him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I've become that 16-year-old again. Um, or, like you often regress back to a younger age, and it can be more triggering being around your family, even if you've got a good relationship with them. And particularly if you don't have the strongest relationship, family can bring up a lot. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the holiday period can be that perfect storm for your money stories to really amplify. And gosh, it can be confusing as well at times, because you then have your own family to deal with and you've got your business to deal with. So there's just so many of these money stories that are playing out and coming out. And it can leave you going, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? I don't even know what to do. And it can be really tricky. I just want to acknowledge that, like, it can be a really tricky point in time. And I think depending on the predominant money block that you have, it can show up in lots of different ways. So you might have the scarcity money block, and you might find that's where you're panic launching in December because you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I haven't really planned for the next year. What do I do? Oh, that person's posted a really good offer. I better do the same thing. And it can be really hard to enjoy that family time. Or you might have the worthiness block, and part of that might come from needing to give a lot of gifts to prove that you are good enough, that you have achieved success, and look how successful your business is. You might have the safety block where that can be refusing to take a long break over the holiday period, because there's this fear that if you take time off, then you're going to lose momentum in your business and everything will all come crashing down. You might have the trust block. That is one of my predominant blocks. And that might leave you buying those gifts at the checkout when you're at the supermarket. You weren't planning on it, but you just saw it there and you're like, oh, so and so would love that. In the cart it goes. And then you've accidentally spent all of this money that you didn't want to spend because you're trying to make sure that you've got all of your gifts, but that end up spending more than what you wanted. Maybe you've got the struggle block, which means that you find yourself working excessively, especially over the holiday period, and maybe missing out on some of those special moments with your family, because making money can be hard, right? When you've got this block. Or maybe if you've got the people with wealth are bad, money is bad block, then you might find yourself downplaying your luxury purchases. So, for example, I know one of my clients who bought themselves a nice car, didn't want to take that car to their families because they were like, oh my goodness, I don't want them to see this because they'll judge me for it. And they were judging themselves for that as well, right? But all of those money blocks and all of those things that come up for us during the holidays, they're not just based on the things that we can see in the here and now. If you've listened to my podcast or you've followed my work, you you will already know some of this, right? Because what is actually happening is that there are some deeper things that have been triggered, some of those deeper money wounds, some of those deeper money blocks that have been triggered. And they come out in the form of kind of beliefs that we feel. So, for example, it might be, oh my goodness, I'm not even really that successful, and I don't want my family to know that because they think I'm doing great. Or it might be, oh gosh, everyone's got it all figured out and I'm just kind of bobbing along. I don't really know what I'm doing. Or it might be, my family does not understand me at all. I can't even talk about my business with them because they just don't get it. And they don't understand that if I buy this expensive gift, that actually I can afford it. And because of their money blocks, they're judging me, and oh, it just feels uncomfortable. There's a lot of shame with that. And particularly again for women, there's this mental load that we carry when it comes to the holiday season. And we can place a lot of pressure on ourselves for just wanting things to be perfect and wanting to have the perfect presence, the perfect experience, the perfect food, the perfect atmosphere, just things to be really good, which can then really leave us feeling quite overwhelmed, right? And when I think about this type of money anxiety over the holidays, it can manifest in our body in a lot of physical ways that might feel stronger than other times in the year. Might not for you, and that's okay. But some of the ways that we can experience some of these money anxieties in our body might be that not in the pit of our stomach where it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like I really want to make sure that I'm getting the right gift. I really hope they like it. Or the sweaty palms when you're in the store trying to rush around and buy those gifts, particularly at the last minute. Oh, particularly if you found out that somebody's coming to a Christmas gathering that you weren't expecting. So you have to duck out, and then that anxiety kicks in because it's like that panic of, oh my gosh, what do I get? What do I get? And you can just feel really rushed and your heart rate might start racing. Your heart might be pounding. I know those are all things that I've experienced in the past, and it can feel really uncomfortable and really unpleasant to have all of those physical symptoms that are going on in your body. You might have some other physical stuff that's going on in your body that I haven't spoken about, and that's okay. Just notice that. Notice how anxiety plays out in your body when it comes to your relationship with money. Because when we can understand what those triggers are, what's going on for us, how that plays out in our body, then we can take proactive steps to regulate our emotions and to take a moment to regroup and to ground ourselves back into that moment. So instead of getting swept up in the overwhelm, which can be easy to do when there's this collective overwhelm happening in this bubble around us, if we can kind of come back to ourselves, it can be really helpful so that we don't overspend, so that we don't get caught up in Uncle Fred's unhelpful comments about what's going on in our business and how we're too flashy or how we're bragging about how successful our business is, which, by the way, you are not doing any of those things and you are allowed to do those things. That says more about them than it says about you. So I just want you to remember that and to be reminded that it is okay for you to have a successful, thriving business and to want to talk about it. All of those things are okay. And we're going to come face to face with some other people's money blocks, and being able to separate ourselves from those is going to be super important. So how do we do that in that case? What we can do, well, there's a couple of things that we can do, and I'm going to give you a couple of strategies that hopefully you'll be able to identify and pick one or two of them that might be something that you think, oh, I'm going to try and just see how that lands for me. So a couple that I really like are, first off, thinking about, and I know we kind of spoke about boundaries at the start, and I do kind of want to talk about this from a financial money standpoint, because even though you might be able to afford something different, or maybe you're on the other side and you can't, maybe your business, you're in the early stages and you can't at the moment. Whatever your financial status, it's okay for you to have your own financial boundaries that other people don't understand or don't agree with. You are allowed to have your own boundaries around that. For example, some people love to, some families love to gift everyone a present, which can get expensive really fast. Other people like to have just the kids, or they do a secret Santa. At the end of the day, you're allowed to have your own boundary around what you want to do with your finances. And it's important for you to kind of understand where you're at the moment. What are your finances like? And I get that sometimes at Christmas, it can feel really anxiety provoking to look at those bank balances, or you might do the opposite and excessively check it. Like, it kind of sometimes falls in between. But being able to set those boundaries with yourself, and if you've got a partner, with your partner, and then as a team, be able to communicate that with other people that are connected with you at Christmas. Okay, we're only going to be spending $15 per person on gifts. That's our allocation. And people might say, oh, but we have said that there's a budget of $50. And being able to say, okay, that's great. However, our budget is actually $15 per person. And look, I'm making this up. Obviously, it's whatever you feel comfortable with. But if you are able to have that boundary within your own mind first, then it can become a lot easier to share that with other people around you. So that's one tool. And I know that one sounds a lot easier said than done, particularly in the heat of the moment. Another one that I find particularly helpful is having some key phrases when people bring topics up, particularly around money that you don't feel comfortable with. They might see your flashy car in the driveway. And you know what? Good for you. You are allowed to have a flashy car. And I keep highlighting this because I know that we can start to judge ourselves when other people throw comments at us. But you're allowed to have that flashy car. So if people start to comment or say things about your business, your success, you might have a bank of key phrases that are in your toolkit. And there might be a few people that you kind of already know in your mind, like I already know in my mind who would be those people that would say stuff to me. So I know that I could have a bank of phrases in my mind, and it might be things like they might say something like, "Oh, that's a flashy car that you've got in your driveway. I can't believe that someone like you would have been able to create a successful business that would allow you to buy that. I bet you're going to be paying that off for 10 years." I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. And then you might just have that anchor phrase and say something like, "Oh, yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I'm going to go get a drink." And when people say things that you're not interested in hearing more about, don't ask questions. Avoid arguing back or trying to justify yourself, because chances are that person's not going to hear you anyway. And then have something on the end of that where you can say, I'm going to grab a drink. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to go fill up my plate. I'm going to check on the kids. Or, oh, I see my partner over there and they're calling me. I'm going to go see what they want. Whatever it is, to get you out of that conversation so that you don't have to be in that position where somebody is just judging you or whatever it is that's going on for them. So I hope that that helps as well, because sometimes it's nice just to leave that situation. And on that note, you can do that at any point in time. If you just need a timeout, go get a drink, go get a glass of water, go to the bathroom. Then you can sit in the bathroom and take some breaths and just breathe and be like, I've got this. Like, fuck, that was annoying, but whew, you know what? I've got this. Give yourself some time to regroup, take some breaths, and then go back into the situation. And one of the other, or a couple, I'm going to share a few more with you because I do want you to have this toolkit. Another one that I like, and this is particularly useful when thinking about how you want to be spending your money, particularly over Christmas, is to tap into your inner millionaire. How would your inner millionaire, the future version of you, the one who is already successful and has achieved her goals, what would she be doing in that situation? Whether it's at the shops, standing in line with the $200 air fryer that you're going to buy Aunt Jane because she's unexpectedly coming. Would she buy the $200 air fryer, or would she make a different financial decision? And being able to tap into your inner millionaire and just kind of think, what would she be doing in this moment? How would she be thinking? How would she be feeling? Can be really helpful just to remind us of our aligned actions and to be able to help step us into a moment where we're able to make a decision that feels really good for us in that moment. And the other things that I really like is, and this is something that I would do, particularly when around my family, and just needing to offload, is to whip out my phone and in the notes section, just jotting down some notes like, oh my goodness, this is really difficult, or whatever it is that's going on. Or if I have the opportunity, a voice memo. Like sometimes you just need to talk it out. And as an ADHDer, I love to process through words and speaking out loud. And being able to do a voice note can be really helpful. Sometimes I'd voice note a friend, but even just doing a voice note to myself and having it in my phone, I can listen to it later if I want to and then process it further, or I can just offload it in that voice note, which can be super helpful personally for me. It depends on what is going on and what you've got access to, how you are able to be in that moment, like whether you've got the space to do a voice note, or you might be sitting with a group of people and you might need to just whip out your phone and be able to kind of do it discreetly, like you're sending a text message, but jotting down your frustrations or something that you are just finding tricky in that moment or challenging in that moment. And finally, to kind of wrap it all up, like one of the things that I have interestingly only recently started to do for myself, and I've just found it to be a game changer, is shaking off the energy of other people at the end of the day. And the reason I share that is because, as I said earlier in the episode, there's so much collective frantic energy at the moment that's only going to increase as we get closer and closer to the holiday season, to Christmas. We can absorb that. And that's why I don't like going to the shops, because I'm a massive empath and I can feel the emotions in the air. And I've learnt to create a shield around myself, and my shield's clear, goes kind of around my body, but it's clear. And I know that the shield is protecting me from other people's energy from fully entering. But somehow I still collect it along the way, even though I've got that shield. And that's okay. And I love that I'm able to do that because it helps me to connect with people. If I didn't have that, I think it'd be harder to connect with people. So I quite like that about myself. However, what I also notice is that sometimes I have a feeling or a thought or something that's happening in my body, and I'm like, hang on a minute, that's actually not mine. And the reason for that is because throughout the day, we are living on autopilot and we're collecting other people's emotions and um, energy. So being able to kind of shake it off, whether that's through like a mindfulness exercise or something like that, or whether it's just kind of a sentence or a statement that you do, can be a really helpful way to just let it go. So sometimes for myself, what I will do is I will kind of imagine this light, and it doesn't really matter what color it is. For me, it changes. And I will let myself from my head all the way down to my toes, let myself to be covered in this light. It's kind of like, sounds weird, honey, almost in a way, but it's not quite honey. And it kind of surrounds me. And from head to toe, I'm covered in this light. And what I imagine is this light kind of then penetrating through and absorbing into my body. And as it absorbs into my body, it's collecting all of the energy that isn't mine. And it's collecting all the physical sensations, the emotions, the thoughts that aren't mine. And then I imagine that light being released. And as that light is released, then I say to myself, I return this energy because it's not mine. And so I love that I'm able to do that. And you can create your own version of that, whatever it looks like for you. I'm kind of giving you a very inarticulate version of how I do that. So you can kind of create something that works for you. And it just feels really nice to kind of let go of that energy that's not mine. So I just want to quickly recap, and I hope that I haven't forgotten anything, because what I want you to walk away from this episode with is a few practical strategies that can help you navigate some of the franticness of the holiday season and to help slow you down a little bit. And I think some of that, like the tools that we've spoken about, include being able to know what your own financial boundaries are, being able to uh, have those anchor phrases in conversation so that you can repeat that as needed. And you might have a bank of like 3 or 4 that you can repeat throughout conversations, and have a phrase or something that you can do, like an activity, like I'm going to get that glass of water, so that you can leave that conversation. You can visualize your inner millionaire to tap into how she would be connecting or dealing with those financial situations. You can journal or voice memo yourself in your phone. Or if you've got a support person, you can send them a quick note or a voice memo, just making sure that they're aware that that's a strategy that you have both agreed upon. And you might also then have that energy release as well, to release all of that energy that's not yours back into the universe, to let it go. And I love doing that at the end of the day, just before I'm about to start getting ready and unwind for bed. And it's such a, for me, it's so lovely. So I really hope that that has helped you, because your holiday season does not have to be a choice between being financially stressed and focused on the money and the success and your business. You can be a conscious entrepreneur who has this really successful business and celebrates that, regardless of what anyone else thinks, whilst also enjoying the holiday period, whilst also enjoying your time off, whilst also having fun, being present, knowing that your business is going to be okay. I'm probably going to share a little bit more holiday stuff in a couple more episodes. Don't worry, they're not all going to be holiday related, I promise. But I really wanted to share this one with you now rather than waiting a few more weeks, because I do think that as we feel that energy in the here and now can be really helpful, I think, to prepare moving forward rather than wait until shit hits the fan. So that was my reasoning for delivering this today. I also want to share with you, you would have heard me talking about those money blocks, and there are 6 of them. And you can actually find out which of those money blocks is yours, because I've got this free quiz that will help you unpack your predominant money block. Mine is definitely the trust block. Like, that is my top block. Coming in second would probably be the struggle block. And you can identify yours with the free quiz. I have popped the details of that in the show notes. So if you're curious to uncover what your predominant block is, check the information out in the show notes. But I hope you have really enjoyed this episode, and I will chat to you again next week. Until then, take care of yourself.